This conference will now be recorded.
July 6th, council meeting order. Myron Massey.
Would you please join me in prayer? Dear Lord and Father of all, we come to you this evening to ask your guidance as the Sedalia City Council, mayor, administrator, staff meet to make important decisions that will affect the community and its citizens. We are thankful for their dedication and service. We ask your protection of all our first responders, police, sheriff, fire, EMTs, hospital personnel, and all of those who risk their lives to protect ours. And especially we are thankful for this democratic republic, the United States of America, now celebrating 245 years as the greatest experiment in government the world has ever seen. Please help us guard and protect this democratic republic, for which so many have sacrificed their lives to create and protect. Bless all of our armed services personnel here and throughout the world who stand guard for us, keeping us safe from those who would do us harm. Also, we would like to mention particularly this evening about Jane Gray, who served this city from 1983 as council from 4th Ward through her mayoral stint from 1992 to 2002. We lost her, and she will be missed, a servant to this community. And now, as we leave this evening, please protect us and our loved ones, keeping us from harm until we meet again. All this we pray in the name of your Son, our risen Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now, at this time, we'll take a few minutes to honor Jane Gray. I personally knew Janie, as a friend over the years, and she and I were on the city council together. I served 1 year with her, and I can't remember how many women we had at the council at any given time. She may have been the first woman, or Becky Ledgewood. Both of them were about the same time. And I know she was the first woman mayor we ever had. But we had a good relationship. She and I, we watched each other back. The council was a pretty tough council, and I wouldn't say it was a very friendly council to particularly Jane, but she was tough, and she handled it well. Of course, over the years, too, I was blessed to be appointed to the Park Board by Jane, and I was also on the Public Works Board to serve. Anytime she asked, I would try to help her. She's a good gal, and she'd be missed. I think Chief Harold had a little bit of a relationship maybe in his early fire career.
You could ask a few minutes ago, my only interaction with Ms. Gray was when she was mayor. I was in the ranks when she was a council person, but when she was mayor and I was captain, our admin team was very actively involved with the Department of Natural Resources in writing some of the rules and some of the processes for disassembling meth labs and disposal of them in coordination with DNR and the EPA. I was in charge of that admin team at that time, and we were given a plaque that's still on the wall at the fire headquarters today from DNR for our participation in that. And it was presented to Mayor Gray at that time for the council meeting. And I think that she was proud of that effort, so the members of the fire department was involved with that. And then we had kind of received some statewide recognition, not only from the state DNR, but from the EPA are involved in that process. Like I said, most of the time when she was on council, I was in the ranks that didn't really care to be on the city hall.
Of course, Arlene has been with the city a number of years and has some recollection.
Yes, I remember Janie very well. She was a wonderful lady. Of course, I was not city clerk then, so Shirley Collins was clerk then, and she had more interaction with her. But the biggest thing that I think we should be proud of is she was the first woman mayor for the city of Sedalia. I think that's extraordinary. And of course, I knew her son. He worked on the police department back then, and knew her husband. So
Yeah,
she'll be missed.
Mike lives in Jeff City.
I'm sorry,
Mike apparently lives in Jeff City now.
yes. He's been there for quite when he left here, he went to the state to work.
Bob Cross?
Yeah, I graduated with Jane Gray back in 1959, and she appointed me to a public housing, which I served on for 20 years. And her father had John's Lumber Company, and she was a great lady.
Jane lived at one house down from me most of my childhood, and I remember when she was running for offices, that was the first interaction that I had with anyone running for anything in the political realm. And it was pretty exciting when she won mayor. We had a big party at Dorothy's house, and I remember thinking, wow, this is cool, and never would I imagine that I would be sitting in the same seat that she was in many years ago. She was a great lady.
Mayor one of these days.
Whew. John's got it. He's good. What about you, Bob Cross? How did you feel?
No.
But Janie was a great lady. She was a great lady.
You get some pretty quick.
Yeah. It's big money.
Oh, yeah.
And you get all the food, you have a private kitchen, and some dating service, 24 hours.
So you're gonna take a cut and pay it?
Yeah, nothing to nothing is good. I do get it. Well, thank you for, anybody else want to make a comment? Anybody has a recollection of Jane? It's showing our age, isn't it? That's for sure. Well, thank you. Do we have a meeting now? Yeah. So we have a special service award tonight.
Roll call.
Oh, roll call, please.
Lehman,
Here.
Oldham,
Here.
Dawson,
Here.
Bogus,
Here.
Richardson,
Here.
Cross,
Yes.
Foster,
Here.
and Bliss.
Here.
Now, Chief Farrell, come forward. This fine family and the
One of the fun parts of this job is providing specific service work and work accommodation. And so tonight, Joe Mardell will be giving 5-year service award. He started with the department on the 9th of June in 2016 and is currently a firefighter in Pisa. Spent most of his time assigned at headquarters. He's married to my Susan, his children, Aiden and Natalie, are back there. In his 5 years with the department, he studied in 12 certifications in various categories, ranging from driver, operator, to instructor, inspector, deck rescue, center, fire officer 1 and 2. So he has a bright future ahead of him if we can keep him here and hopefully can. One reason that Joe is a great department is always willing to help others, act as a mentor for younger people, and just help out all firefighters any way he can. So it's very nice to know that I'm going to give you sitting in your 5-year team. Congratulations.
Joseph, thank you. Chief, thank you. So we have a motion to approve the council meeting minutes.
Motion to approve. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Community Development, Evan Dawson.
We have 2 items on the agenda tonight. The first one is a presentation from Central Bank. The Community Development Director, Simmons, if you could go ahead and introduce the representatives from Central Bank.
Give you a quick background on this presentation. Erica approached me a couple months ago with Jessica from Economic Development to create a development opportunity package for potential investors in Sedalia. So with that, I would like to present or introduce you to Erica Peterson. She's the Business Development and Marketing Director for Central Bank of Sedalia, and she is with Greg Eby, the President of Central Bank of Sedalia. So, Erica, if you'd like to come share with them what we've been working on.
Hi. Thank you. So as John said, my name is Erica Peterson with Central Bank, and Mr. Eby is our president. Thank you so much for allowing us to be here. I'm here just to get your blessing on a little project that we are working with the city on. So just to give you a little background, our sister bank in Boone County has a portfolio very similar to the one that we would like to do and partner with the city. So what they do is their local city, their different attorneys, their recruiting offices, all the different areas in Columbia all have this same portfolio. So whenever somebody is coming to town to look at bringing a business to Columbia, they all get this portfolio. So like John said, I've been really excited about this project, something we've been working on for quite a little while. And it just finally kind of fell into place. I was able to meet with Tim and Kelvin to really just talk about what we can do and how we can really partner with Sedalia to get this portfolio together. So the portfolio will be something very similar to this. So Central Bank's logo will be on the front. But what's important is all the stuff that's going to be on the inside. So on the inside, what we really want to do is we want to highlight Sedalia. Why is Sedalia such a great place? And it really falls in line with the discussion you all actually had at your last council meeting in Sedalia and branding Sedalia and really putting out there who is Sedalia and why we want people to come. We know why Sedalia is great. We love it here, obviously, but what we want are other people to come here. So the idea is on the inside of this binder to have things that reflect Sedalia. What makes Sedalia great? So the things that we want to have on the inside are the Sedalia Chamber Directory, the Sedalia Showcase magazine, the Missouri Rural magazine. You know, there are things that we already kind of have in place that really represent our area and what makes it special. In addition to that, we're going to have a small little pamphlet in there. I brought a little example in case anybody wanted to see it, just to kind of welcome to Sedalia. Here's some information about Central Bank and my hands aren't working, sorry, and the accounts we have to offer. And then in addition, the city has been working with Callis on some actual pieces to insert inside the folder. So what we would like that to look like, or what our discussion has been, is really a piece about Sedalia. And right now the city kind of has all these different pieces, but this would be combining it all into one. So if you're new to town, who do you call? Who do you call for electric services? Who do you call for heat? Who do you call for gas? All those different things that we all know, but somebody coming to town would have no idea about. Different things about what's going on in our community. What are things that we're proud of? We're proud of our schools. We're proud of our healthcare facilities. We're proud of our churches. We have our Heckert Center that's coming. There are so many amazing things that are happening in our community. So this initial pamphlet would be something to really brag about us, but also to have an informational section. Now, I know when John and Kelvin and I met, they talked about not only using that for this binder, but there are a lot of businesses in town that could really also use that information. So this piece, the first piece, would be something with a longer shelf life, probably every 12 months or so it could get a facelift, if you will, but something that every business could use, but also is a really good piece for those businesses coming to town. So not only are we trying to develop something that'll be helpful for prospective businesses, but for the people that are already here. Then in addition, we want something that has a shorter shelf life. So maybe somebody's coming to downtown, so we have a pamphlet just about the downtown area, or maybe there's special grants or something that are happening for a different amount of time. So those other pieces we'd be able to move in and out and really have a binder or a portfolio that is really able to move with what's happening in the town. So my dream would be not only for the city to use this, but economic development and the Chamber of Commerce, because you guys are the heart of where everyone comes. When a new business comes to town, they come to see you. And I feel it, I think you guys feel it, I know around town, everybody feels that energy that is building. You guys have done amazing things working with the county in economic development, with Nucor, with the rail spur. The town is growing. We are at a point, it's just such a great opportunity. So we are really hoping that we can move forward with this. The bank would be paying for the portfolio altogether. So the city's only piece that they would be responsible for, again, are those inserts, and that's stuff that's going to be valuable, again, not only for new people, but the existing people as well. So, sorry that was really fast, but I get nervous and talk super fast. You're welcome. So, do you have any questions?
Where would these be located at?
So the city would have some on hand here. Economic development, if they partner with us, would have some. What we're going to do is provide about the first 100, 150 is kind of what we decided would be a good number to start with. And then as the city needs them, we would just order them. Myrna Rager with Rager Banners is going to be producing them for us. So as you all need them, then we would continue to order those and keep them on hand here at the city.
How would you choose which businesses to list, like plumbers or lawn service or things like that? How would you pick which one?
So our goal was to put all the businesses in certain sectors. So John and I sat down and made a list of the things that we really want to highlight. So I don't know if we're going to get that granular, if you will. It was more, again, these are our, we have a college, we have these different schools, we have these different healthcare agencies, some of those bigger things that people look for. Again, I don't know how far down that'll go, but our hope is to include as many people as we can. Mhm.
So you're working with Callis,
Yes.
and at some point in time before we go to print, we've got an ability to prove this,
I would assume so.
or with John or
John obviously
Simmons or?
will be involved.
Yeah, okay, so that's fine.
The piece with Callis that we're discussing is part of the branding message about the different programs the city offers for what our financial incentive policies are, what the different grant and loan programs are,
Get
who to
that.
contact. So that piece is going to be used citywide all the time, even to our residents to say, this is who we are, this is what's available to you from the city. Then the other piece that you talked about, the one that gets updated more often is, in the next 12 months, the Heckert Center is going to be open. Or, say 2 years from now, we go, okay, we're building a new dog park at some location. So we'll be able to highlight those upcoming things, but still direct them to the services that they're looking for.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, and if I could just add on to that, first of all, there'd be kind of that generic piece that we're talking about is that, why Sedalia? Why should you even look at Sedalia? Why should you be concerned or consider Sedalia? And then, from an economic development standpoint, we always have a specific offer that is targeted towards that prospect. And so that would be updated specific to that prospect and that kind of thing. But this just gives us the binder, if you will, to put it all together and accumulate it that they can take with them, and then it stands out for them. Certainly in the front of it is the specific information, but then behind it is all of the background information and why Sedalia is different.
I think those business listings you were referring to also, that's where the chamber directory comes into play. Since the chamber is a partner with the city, we would include that chamber directory. Now, that is membership based. That is, an exclusive list, but that's a starting point.
What cost would be incurred on our end for this?
Our cost would just be the production piece of the branding. I envision about a 10 to 12 page, color produced, nice presentation of who the city is and why you should be here. Okay. So that's going through the branding budget.
Gotcha.
And then the specific stuff is really, we try to dress it up, but it comes on letterhead.
Mm-hmm.
And we can color print those quick. If we had to change their program, we can color print that and make it look and feel like the branding pieces in our own system here.
So I don't see a lot of cost,
Mm-hmm.
the specific cost, because the branding, we want to kind of do those brochures.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we produce those anyway, right?
Yes.
Right.
Tuck those into your portfolio.
We're trying to slick
It's
this
just-
up and look like we've got it together.
It's one big piece, so when they come in, you can say, hi, welcome to Sedalia.
Can we also deliver it electronically? We can have an electronic portfolio that goes with it that we could hand to them electronically.
I believe so.
Sure.
Everything would be PDF.
Right.
We'd have a presentation electronically also. You could even access it online at the city's website.
Yeah. Jeffrey, looks like you have a question. No, I'm fine.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful evening.
Great idea.
Next item we have on the agenda is a presentation on the proposed lodging code. Administrator Shaw will be presenting. Administrator Shaw, you have the floor.
Thanks, sir. Well, we've been looking at a lodging code, and so the first thing is just to kind of give you a little bit of background as to why we're looking at it, and I can sum that up really pretty generically, just to say public safety is why we're looking at a lodging code. In doing that, we believe that there are special considerations that are applicable to hotels or motels or lodging, if you will, for transient guests. First of all, they have to rely more on us to protect their public safety. For example, they're usually or quite often they're booking their location sight unseen. So by the time they do see it, or by the time they're able to inspect, it's really too late. They can't simply just go elsewhere. Quite often, for example, when they're coming to the fair, most of the time those motel rooms are all booked up. So by the time they get here, if they find out that the room, for example, has bed bugs or is not safe, or some issue, they can't just simply say, well, okay, I'm going to go down the street, because they're all booked up. So also other remedies for unsanitary or unsafe conditions is more difficult for them. Who do they complain to? And first of all, or second of all, when they do complain, by the time we get it addressed, their stay is over with. So there's not really as many mechanisms for them to take care of problems. And then also the guests are less able to inspect what's around them throughout the whole establishment, so they don't know what's in the room next door to them that may harm them. So again, they have to rely on us to make sure that to ensure their safety. Also, anonymity and the short stay has the ability, or has quite often provides cover to the criminal activity that goes on in hotels. Chief Word, you all will remember, he talks quite often about the problem-oriented policing concept, and that concept includes focus on the environment as one of the three-legged stools. If you eliminate the environment, or eliminate opportunities within the environment for criminal activity, you can reduce crime. Also, data also shows that some of the establishments we currently have here in town have a high incidence of criminal activity, to include the drug dealing, the robbery and trading of stolen goods, and then also prostitution. Once criminals know that criminal activity is going on in a hotel, it kind of becomes a magnet for additional criminals to show up. They tend to congregate and trade with each other, and so the more that it's allowed, the more that it kind of spirals out of control. Also, when law enforcement is able to prove a pattern or find a location where criminal activity is going on, it is much easier for them to just move, which makes it harder for us to, first of all, get search warrants, and then also to execute those search warrants. And, Chief, if you wanted to add anything to that, or also, not nearly as important as the public safety, but it's still a consideration, is the perception of the community, or the economic consideration. Quite often, their first impression of the community is the motel room that they stay in. And if that's not a good one, that sometimes is their only impression of the community, because they pack up and leave, and unfortunately, they'll also, if it's a bad experience, they'll consider the whole community as having that persona, if you will. We do get numerous complaints, and right now we don't have a lot of mechanism, if you will, or tools to address those complaints. Particularly after the state fair, we get a lot of complaints about sanitary conditions and health standards at some of our motels. And then also the same way with criminal activity. We get a lot of complaints, but then again, by the time we are able to address it, it's already done, or they've moved on. And then from my perspective, we also get that reputation. They think of their hotel or their experience as Sedalia, not that particular hotel. they don't know that the next hotel just down the street has much better, much nicer, all of those kinds of things. So even the nicer hotels get painted with the same brush. So I think it's in the best interest of the nicer hotels and those kinds of things as well. Our approach, when we were looking at this, how we approached it is first of all, we did a significant amount of research. We reviewed the current state statutes and their regulations on regulating lodging establishments. We consulted with our legal counsel, and they have several communities. I can't remember how many communities they deal with, but they have several communities that have wrestled with the same problem. So we asked them how they're dealing with it. They shared with us a lot of their, or some of their best ones that how they feel that they're dealing with it well. We consulted the county presiding commissioner, the county prosecutor, and the county health department. And then we also reviewed the recently adopted county health code on lodging. And just a note there, the county has fewer tools that they can use by statute than what the city does. The county has to address this from their 192-300, I think it is, the state statute, that they're allowed to prevent disease and the spreading of diseases. Whereas we have state statutes allow us to further regulate businesses and license businesses. So we're able to go a little bit further than what the county can do. We also reviewed several communities' codes, most notably the 4 that's listed there, and you'll hear me talking probably mostly about Branson and Blue Springs because we borrowed a lot of what they've done. I really liked how they approach things, and so we borrowed a lot of their language to put this together. Like I said, we approach this from a business license standpoint. We get our authority under Chapter 94 of the state statutes to regulate businesses, and so in our code of ordinances, that comes under Chapter 12 for business licensing. And what we're proposing then is to add Article 9 for specifics on lodging establishments. So within this new 9, what some of the highlights here of what is made up or what is in there is we intend to apply this to all lodging establishments. Some of the ones that some of our research, they make a distinction between 5 rooms and above and below 5 rooms. And my feeling is you have the same public safety concerns on 4 rooms as you do 20 rooms. So I'm not sure why we would exempt out establishments that were less than 5 rooms. That is certainly an item for discussion with council, though. If you want us to look at exempting out smaller establishments, we certainly can, or have a different set of rules for smaller establishments than the larger. We also pulled in existing laws. Basically, we made it a requirement that they have to comply with the existing laws, so that brings in our fire code, our building codes, all of those kinds of things. Then the meat of the matter here is requiring inspection. And so we will have an inspection required before we issue or renew a license for any lodging establishment. This gives the authority to the chief building official or their designee, and some of that is just for simplicity so that they can, it designates one person or one office, if you will, that allows them to bring in the other disciplines. So they can bring in the fire department to do the fire inspection on the fire safety. They can bring in the health department on the health. They can bring in the police department on the criminal activity, all of those kinds of things. But then those inspections really come under the authority of the chief building official, which also has all of the building code and all of that. As a condition of the license, they must allow routine and complaint-driven investigations to ensure continued compliance. And again, this is kind of the meat of the whole ordinance here, to give us that ability to inspect and make sure that they are continuing to comply. And then we'll get into it a little bit later, but then the opportunity to suspend or revoke their business license to get compliance, or to. Also, under inspections, it gives them, the chief building official, the authority, if you will, to close off an area or the whole establishment, if it comes down to that, for imminent health or safety hazard mitigation. So if they find something that is really egregious and really is putting people at danger, and it can, could result in something unfortunate for an individual, then they can close it right then, close it off, cause them to close and shut down. Of course, most of these hopefully are the non-imminent type hazards, and so at that point they just work with the establishment, come up with an action plan to correct the hazards, and we go on. With those, they get the opportunity to revoke or suspend the license for any non-compliance. If we can't get compliance with working with them, then we suspend or revoke their business license until they do comply. And then it also refers to other remedies that we already have, that it just applies to that we can get injunctive relief, or we can apply to the courts to get injunctive relief, basically get a court order for them to do what they're supposed to do. But it puts it in our ability to take it through our municipal court. Also, we have put in there some specific minimum operating requirements, or things that we are expecting them to do, and this is things, again, that we can inspect for, or should inspect for. And here again, I tried to find a middle of the road of all of the other communities that we researched, and tried to get what was just the minimum. This is something, again, I'd like council's input on. Did we go too far? Did we go far enough? So the highlights here are, first of all, cleaned and maintained between each guest. Weekly checklist for continued occupancy. So if a guest is there for more than a week, then they would have to have a checklist. They'd have to do certain things to make sure that it's clean before that week. They need to provide clean towels and washcloths, clean bed linens, clean and good repair mattress and box springs, sanitary glances and utensils if they're provided. The ice from the commercial ice source with potable water supply. Ice containers clean and sanitary, garbage and refuse handling and removal requirements to make sure that that's handled in a sanitary manner. Insect and rodent control. First of all, they need to construct and maintain the building to prevent rodents from entering the facility. And then they need to either use professional pest services, or with approval, they can do things like self-treat for bed bugs with a heat treating equipment that's specifically designed for this use. That does not include the propane with the torch on the end of it. So, pesticide application in accordance with the labeling and certification requirements. Removal of remains of rodents and other pests. And then for the section on preventing public nuisance, this is really aimed at reducing or eliminating criminal activity. And that's, first of all, they need to comply with the state statutes on guest registry, and then also make that registry available to the police upon their request. And then posting requirements for registered sex offenders. And then we're asking them to keep a photocopy of all guest picture ID, and again, provide that upon request to the PD. I'm sorry, my computer's giving me some warnings here. They need to identify all vehicles that are of their guests and issue parking passes and require those to be displayed in the front windshield of all vehicles in the parking lot, so that the police will, or anybody will really know who's supposed to be there and thereby who's not supposed to be there. So, cooperation with PD on investigation and additional requirements upon police chief declaration and professional opinion that the establishment is being used for criminal activity, to include, but certainly not limited to, adding parking area lighting, line of sight issues like trimming the bushes and those kinds of things to keep to make it more difficult for people to hide in the shadows, if you will, and then adding video surveillance. But this is one that again I struggled with, and in some of our discussions internally, we struggled with, should those things be part of the minimum requirements, or are we good with those being where they're at as additional requirements? And from my perspective, if we go too far, then our establishments that really aren't experiencing this problem, do they resist us? And but then if we don't go far enough, are we curing the problem? So that's at least another item that I think I would certainly like to hear council's debate on that and decide which way we should go.
So let's just go down the council. Yeah, any comments or input? So first of all, our goal is to have this ready for
next meeting.
Next meeting.
I think one of the first part, the couple pages back where they have to keep the registration by statute, that's one thing, along with the actual ID picture, which is usually a driver's license that identifies that person that's signed that registry, if that's the real true person that's there. The other one is the registration, and I've not been any place that I've checked into that you don't do this anyway, including your license plate number of your vehicle. And we don't necessarily put something in the window, but that license plate's registered. And then this last part with the area parking or the parking lighting and the line of sight and video surveillance, any reputable place is really going to have those in place. So the consideration of those that aren't having trouble, maybe that's why they're not having trouble. So I would kind of agree that we need to ask this be put in place.
That's part of the minimum.
It's part of the minimum.
I would echo that. I stayed at several establishments outside of town, in the city, where all of this stuff has already, it's mandatory, it's the minimum. It's the common thing to see, to hand over your driver's license, and the common thing to get your license plate number so they know what vehicle is on their establishment, to have a well-lit parking lot. So I'm of the opinion that this isn't an extreme measure. I think not even if it's the minimum, I think this is what should be occurring at any of our establishments. It should already, I mean, if I was a business owner, those would just be the common things to do to run my business efficiently. So I guess you could put, make these at least the minimum.
You would think competition would dictate that. Andrew?
Well, I think that staff has struck a reasonable balance here, and not gone too far, but not been too permissive. And there's still room where, we can still continue if things do not change after we put this into effect, that we can go ahead and continue to tighten things down until they do, and let people know that if you're benefiting from illegal activity that's occurring on your establishment, you're not welcome in Sedalia.
Yeah.
Totally agree that something has to be done about it. Just coming off of a hotel stay at the Sheraton in Indianapolis, Indiana. They didn't ask me for photo ID. They didn't ask me for my driver's license. All they wanted was my credit card. So, you know, there are some hotels that don't do any of these things. But then you also have to think, well, if you're staying at the Sheraton, especially the one that we were at, you got to be on the up and up. But then again, you know, you got some high-ranking drug people that could be on, you know, in there as well. So, yeah, you have to have something put in place in order to protect us. But my question is that when we got ready to check out, we didn't do a little checklist and hand it to the front desk. They said, go online, and you will do this online, and it's going to go to the main headquarters of Sheraton, and they then dribble down to, okay, this is the one that was in Indiana, so this is the one that we need to say, you didn't do da-da-da-da-da, or you did do da-da-da-da-da. So my question is, where are they going to report all of this stuff to? Because you know very well, if we say each individual hotel here in town can hold on to its own paper, what's going to stop me from checking out, oh, yeah, wonderful, and turning it in? So there needs to be some type of system where they can report this without saying, or without thinking it's not really going to get to the right people. If it's a negative, it's not going to get to the right people. So maybe that's something else that we need to look at, of how to report this, how to get this information.
That's a good point. I think Chief Ford could address this. I think what's giving impetus to this is the criminal activity or the activity we have in certain areas.
Right.
And this gives the authority to, like, code people or say Devin, and Chief Ford and his staff to go in and check all those necessary, he has all those necessary tools available for identification of those individuals or maybe causing problems in the area.
And they're talking about putting together a portfolio that they're going to hand out. Is there any kind of way that we could give an incentive to the hotels here, saying, hey, they're going to, if we get so many numbers such and such, we're going to put into that portfolio, this is our number one hotel today, this is our number two. And it all depends on the feedback from the people that's been staying there.
You know,
maybe they'll work harder.
Does anybody know how the, I'm going to call it the branding, I don't know if that's the right word for it, but let's say we have owners of the Econo Lodge, and how does that branding happen? Or Best Western, you know, they're associated with, but they are owned by different people. So they're
probably a franchise agreement.
Okay. And I
Upper
think,
dance of franchise.
well, that kind of ties in with what Tina's talking about here, is that the reporting capability, where does that go? And that's beside what we're dealing with right now. I mean, we're kind of looking downstream again. But it kind of ties into where that report goes and how that's controlled and how that actual franchise is controlled within that. That may be out of our hands at that point to be able to do something with it, but something maybe we can look at later on.
That kind of brings up one of my major questions, and that's, as it's on, we write all this and create all this, and I think we should. How are we going to enforce it without additional staff? Can we, with the personnel we have right now, can we really do anything with these ordinances? Aren't you overwhelmed now?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I think we can handle it. I don't want to change on the lodging establishments. There are, it can't be just burning that.
No.
Well,
There's dozens.
It would be a once a year, right? A once a year.
Or complaint.
Or on a complaint basis.
Well, yeah, so our officers go into a particular location, and I'd like to see it, if I understand correctly, I'd like to see the photo ID for the people in room 6, and
they don't have the photo IDs, even though the ordinance says they're supposed to have them. Now, I'm not quite sure how that works, but I would think you'd go back out to them and say, hey, got a call from the police department, you didn't have photo ID.
So what,
I don't think it's gonna be as easy as a one-time-a-year inspection, but.
well, Chief Borg, you might be able to address this, because we've had significant criminal activity in this area. Why don't you address that, Chief? You come up with it so we can hear you better.
You know.
No.
I'm certain of that, I'm just not.
No, I mean, how this could be help you assist a tool for law enforcement to address these criminal activities.
So a lot of the establishments that we are having problems with, they're not renting rooms to based on a real name, an identification, using a credit card. Many times it's the room may be rented under somebody else's name. It's not a real name. It may be rented under cash. So there's really no way to track it and to know who was there because the establishment is not following these best practices. So if we, for example, return to a room looking for someone, there's no trackable way to focus on who that room was rented to, or if there's illegal activity going on that room, there's not necessarily a responsible party, if you will, for that room. So best practices that allow or force the establishment into taking on that responsibility of making sure they know who is renting the room, who's responsible for the room, and that sort of thing helps us investigate crimes in there further. Also, the type of people that don't want the hotel to know who they are, why they're there, those sort of things, and some of the other requirements in it of also them checking on they're on the sexual registry. Those types of things protect the people that are the law-abiding citizens that are going there, but it also helps to improve that environment because the folks that want to stay in an establishment like this, they're not going to want to give their identification. They're not going to want to know who is there. We made a couple of arrests at one of the establishments today, multiple warrants, not on the registry of who's supposed to be in that room, that sort of thing. So the establishments that use these practices, we don't go to as much.
That registry, that's a statute, isn't it, from the state?
The state statute requires the guest to register. It doesn't require a photo ID to register, and it doesn't require it to be available to our police department. So that's where this adds on to the state requirement.
Was a sexual predator required to declare when they registered a hotel that they are sexual predators?
Well, one of the parts of that we've discussed is if they stay longer than 30 days, which is part of the statute. I believe also that anybody that stays longer than 30 days falls into that category. So currently that's not a requirement.
I'm not arguing at all that we don't need this. I'm just playing devil's advocate to some degree that, how are we going to really enforce this? What are the penalties? If I have, if I violate this ordinance and I don't have the photo IDs, I haven't reported a sexual offender, you name it. And you guys go in and say, hey, you haven't done this and that's it, or do we have financial penalties?
I think we have the court system, the city court system to deal with it as that, or injunctive relief if they continue on with that. From our perspective, if we go in and we find criminal activity and things like that, say we go in and we have someone that's selling drugs out of a room and we take action on that, I think it's that we put that establishment on notice that they've allowed this to happen, and so that they're aware of it, and if it continues to happen, then that's to me a blatant disregard by the management and by the owners to allow that to continue on. We keep track of a large amount of data. Every call that we go on, there's data associated with that. Some of these establishments we've been to 134 times this year already. So that's significant. So that kind of data we can show a pattern of criminal activity with.
And this gives them the tool then when they get that call for service, who's supposed to be in that room. And if they're not registered, then at that point we can take action against the motel as well for allowing that to continue.
So things that you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis is sex trafficking, drugs.
Drugs is one of the large ones. We believe there's some prostitution and that sort of thing going on. Trading in stolen goods. We've had that. We've had some people that have committed robberies that are hiding out in them. We have had also just general fugitives in them, that sorts of thing. But or that sort of thing. The big thing is again when people think that they have a place to hide and nobody's watching them, they're going to go to those locations. We've seen quite a few people from out of town that have frequented these locations as well.
Any other council discussion?
That is, my recommendation is to include all lodging establishments regardless of size.
Thank you.
How broad do you think that?
I think this is reasonable. On the video surveillance, is there motels that have this?
Yes.
And I'm sure that it's very expensive. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's all over the board as far as you can spend a lot on it or you can spend a little, but and I don't know if all of them have video surveillance in the parking area.
I don't believe. And on the checklist, you know, we have the occupants checklist. I'm sure that if the occupant would write something on the checklist that the motel didn't like, they wouldn't turn that over to the city. So,
Yeah, now, I wasn't anticipating that the occupants filled out the checklist. That's a checklist that the establishment maintains to make sure that all of that is addressed.
That doesn't prevent the occupants from passing on some information.
Yeah.
all right.
Which they often do.
Yeah.
Fran?
I think this is great and very, very needed. I know that our officers frequent some places way too often that we definitely need to give them as much power as we can to help clean things up for sure.
So we as a staff will try to get this pulled together for council.
Yeah. I mean, there's a few more,
Go ahead.
yeah, a few more pieces to it. The one is the swimming pools. Now, the community that I copied this from, they had a separate code for public swimming pools. I don't believe we have any at this current time, any swimming pools that are public, open to the public outside of lodging establishments. So at this point, it's included in the lodging establishment code, but that was, again, one of the things I was seeing where council wanted to go. Do you want that as a separate, in case we ever have public swimming pools, we would just do a separate section for that, or just leave it in the lodging area. If within the swimming pools, then we have patron loading requirements. They have to have so many square feet for so many patrons. The water quality standards, which is an issue right now that we haven't been able to address, where they have to maintain a certain amount of disinfection, pH and alkalinity, water clarity, and water temperature. Routine operations where they requires them to keep the pool clean, the water analysis, and keep a log of that. The equipment cleaning and maintenance, daily logs and records. Safe chemical handling and storage of some of those chemicals that can be dangerous if not handled correctly.
Labeling.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Equipment maintenance, the continuous filtration has to be maintained. Strainers, valves, meters, gauges, feeders, et cetera, have to be inspected and cleaned and cycled to make sure that they're operating properly. The pool structure and decks need to be maintained and repaired so that they don't have trip hazards and cracks and those kinds of things. For safety, they have to have slip-resistant decks free of obstructions, secure ladders and handrails, depth markings, entrance secured, and no glass in the pool area. First aid equipment, they need an AED or and with a towel or a clean dry towel, CPR mask, gloves, scissors, bandages, tapes, antibiotic ointment, the normal stuff within just a basic first aid. And then we did not, but again, is for you all to debate. We did not include self-contained breathing apparatus requirement or a backboard. And our internal discussion was the use of those kinds of things really to require special training, and so they can do more harm than good if you're trying to rely on those or use them when you don't have that training. And really, the swimming pools that we have, they're not going to be maintained or not have those certifications and that training. So, I don't know, Chief, if you want to add anything to that was kind of our thing.
SBA requires special training on pool training. There's some other requirements that come in that would be pretty difficult to change and staff and that type of thing. Plus, you have the possibility of
yeah, instead of calling for the real people, the experts that know how to use it.
On the swimming pools, I guess the occupants swim at their own risk. I mean, we're not requiring no lifeguard there.
Yeah, and again, all of these are small. There are requirements if you have a certain number of square footage or whatever that requires lifeguards or attendants. But I think all of ours are very small. So, but again, if we really wanted to do and the one that I based this off of was Branson, and of course they have a lot of tourism, a lot of public swimming, and all of those kinds of things. So, if you had a large public swimming pool, then you'd want to institute some of those requirements on how many lifeguards and all of that. But at this point, what's in the draft is not. It does not.
So on an annual basis, they've got to get a license to operate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do we require certification of insurance at that point? On that renewal every year?
Yeah, insurance. Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
So to me,
contractors we do, I guess.
Yeah, but we ought to start asking for certifications for insurance because their liability insurance and all those things are going to dictate to them that they've got to do a lot of things too. Can we ask for certification for insurance?
Yes, I think we could. My guess is that that's already being required in order to have their state lodging license, which essentially the city is piggybacking off of that in most cases. So we can look and see what those requirements are, what's the state already making them do, and then add that in. So essentially, we're not putting a new burden on them. We're just saying not only the state requiring it, but the city's going to require that also. Yeah. So yeah, I think we could do that.
And then we'd have to decide, what level of insurance are we going to require?
Right. And then that's the next question we're going to have to decide.
What?
I guess.
Or if you're mirroring off of the state, wouldn't it just mirror what the state requires?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how I would see it. That's how we, handle like liquor licenses in most cases and that sort of thing. That way, again, you're trying to be consistent. You don't want to put extra burden. You're saying if this is what the state is requiring, then we're just going to require the same things also. And that way, they're not having to go out and procure additional insurance beyond what's already being required of them in order to have a state license.
Just a little bit of tag on that. Did we not have a self-insured here not too long ago? Something went haywire with it. There was a discussion about that.
Yeah, I'm drawing a blank.
Are you saying if somebody elects to be self-insured?
Yes.
In a certain location that was self-insured.
Well, they can't elect, I mean, it's a state requirement.
I'm not, I'll be honest, I'm not familiar with what exactly the state lodging requirements are. If it's anything, like with, workers' compensation or something like that, in order to be, you can elect to be self-insured, even if you just take your normal, the state requirement for individuals to have automobile insurance. It's actually not a requirement that you have automobile insurance. You have to maintain financial responsibility. Now, the majority of people opt to do that by having insurance, but technically you could go out and procure a bond, or there's a couple other ways you could actually maintain financial responsibility. So I'm not sure if it's something like that where there are different options in order to satisfy that. We'd have to look and see what the state requires and then see if that's consistent with what you all want to do.
I think with what we got proposed right now, we're starting to get into the weeds, but I think it's a good proposal what we got set for us right now.
That may be covered under that existing law compliance too. If the state already requires them, and if that's all we really want to do, then we've already got that covered. We're saying they have to comply with all the existing laws.
So I guess the overall point is we're gonna protect the public here. We certainly want to make sure that my child goes out to a school, public school, and lodging and electrocuted. I sure hope they've got liability insurance. Any other questions? Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah. So we're ready to I'll go back and review all of the recording, and we'll bring you back a draft of the actual ordinance at the next council meeting. Okay. Great.
That's all I have, Your Honor.
Thank you. Nita.
Public safety has two items tonight. The first one being, the contract for veterinary services. Our contract for veterinary services is expiring. In accordance with our procurement policies, we sent out a request for bids. We received one bid. This bid was from our current provider, and we've been satisfied with their services and cost. Staff recommends approval of the contract with Spay and Neuter Clinic to provide veterinary services through our animal control department. And this clinic does not have X-ray capabilities at this time. Therefore, we will continue to work with Advanced Pet Care to fulfill any needs for X-rays as they occur.
Council discussion. Arlene, read the orders, please.
Bill number 2021-99, an ordinance authorizing an agreement for veterinary services for the Sedalia Animal Shelter.
Second reading.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Bill number 2021-99, an ordinance authorizing an agreement for veterinary services for the Sedalia Animal Shelter.
Final passage.
Roll call, please.
Lehman,
Yes.
Oldham,
Yes.
Dawson,
Yes.
Bogus,
Yes.
Richardson,
Yes.
Cross, Foster,
Yes.
and Bliss.
Yes.
All in favor.
The second item is the JAG grant with Sedalia Police Department. For the past several years, the city has been successful in obtaining an award, Edward Burns Memorial Justice Assistance Grant through the Department of Justice to enhance our law enforcement services. This year, the grant application is to purchase a dual band radio that will facilitate better communications with other law enforcement and public safety agencies. Through a memorandum of understanding, 40% of the grant award is passed through the city to the county. This revenue and related expenditures are included in the budget as adopted. Staff recommends approval of the resolution to authorize pursuit of the grant and approval of the memorandum of understanding with Pettis County for the pass-through portion.
Any discussion about the resolution? Yes? Arlene, read the resolution, please.
Resolution number 1930, a resolution authorizing the Sedalia Police Department to act as an agent for the City of Sedalia in the application process for the 2021 Justice Assistance Grant, a JAG, and an agreement between the City of Sedalia, Missouri and the County of Pettis, Missouri for distribution and use of any awarded funds.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Everybody sees the list. Finance Administration.
First item is Kelvin doing a presentation about a housing study, the housing study that we had done.
All right, great, thank you. You all may recall when we went through the budget, we talked about the opportunity to participate with the Whiteman Area Leadership Council in a grant that they were able to secure, and the city then participated in providing some of the match funds for that grant. This grant, of course, through the Whiteman Area Leadership Council, was specifically targeted towards the area surrounding Whiteman Air Force Base, and so they chose the 15-mile radius as the primary trade area, and then the 30-mile radius, which is the secondary market area, which obviously includes us. There's also details in the appendix of subgeographic data, including the specifically Pettis County and Sedalia. So we've got a lot of good data out of there as far as a housing study that is specifically for Sedalia and the surrounding area. It looks at current conditions and kind of lays out where we're at right now, and then tries to look forward to a 2025 horizon as far as what to expect going forward over the next 5 years. We currently have a draft, and so what I'm going to go through is the results that I've pulled out of that draft. They're still working on finalizing it and getting some final information pulled together for it. So far, out of the executive summary, you can see that there's opportunities for growth, and they specifically mentioned that the Warrensburg and Sedalia areas as the two larger communities within that area has the most opportunities for growth and needs. The home values are the strongest around those two areas, Warrensburg and Sedalia, but still 11% below the state average. As you can see, the median home value in Sedalia is $95,000 and $125 in Pettis County and $169 in the state. And then I thought was interesting, the home values were less than $100,000. 54% of the homes in Sedalia were less than $100,000 value, and as compared to the state or Pettis County, which we have about half of Pettis County, so it skews it pretty heavily, and it's only 39% in Pettis County. So the areas just outside of Pettis County are much higher home values than they are within the city limits. The state is at 25%, so the state is even lower percentage there. So when you look at the 200,000 range, then we're all pretty consistent. A little over a third more of the houses fit within that third. So when you look at the 200,000 and below, 91% of the homes in Sedalia are 200,000 and below, as compared to the state, which is at 61%. So the home values are, two ways to look at that is the home values are lower or you get a lower, or, get to live cheaper here than you do at the rest of the state, so. Population trends, the 2020 population, I have not seen the official results of the 2020 census yet. I've seen some general information overlaying it, but these were based off of those estimates that the Census Bureau has on their website. Currently, Sedalia at 21,000, a little over 21,000, Pettis County 43,000, and 5.6 million at the state. And what they've done in this study is projected that out at a 0.2% growth for Sedalia to get us to 21,900, almost 22,000 by 2025, and 44,000 for Pettis. Where that really comes into play, you know, I mean, everybody has their own estimates as far as what the growth rate, but they're just basing it off of history. But if you look at that from trying to project out what the housing needs are going to be, the average household in Sedalia is 2.38 people per household. So if you take that population growth and divide it into 2.3, or divide by 2.38, you get 82 new households that you will need just to cover the population growth. Or countywide, which again is, you know, we know that most of that is right around the Sedalia area, so really the community of Sedalia, it comes to 241, which I think is a more applicable number. So basically what they're saying, for the population growth, we would need 241 more houses than what we have today, all things else being equal, just to house the additional population. Household income, per capita income is 20,800 versus 23 for the Pettis County, and 30,000, almost 31,000 for the state. And then household income, again, looking specifically at the housing study, is more important. The 38,000 in Sedalia versus 45,000 in Pettis County. Once again, looking at that from a standpoint that we know that, you know, roughly half of the population in Pettis County is in Sedalia, and to have that wide of a gap, you know, that there's the outside the Pettis County, or outside the city limits, is taking that average up pretty significantly. So, and then the state average at 54,596. Occupancy for the houses, again, looking across the Sedalia, Pettis County, and the state. Owner occupied is 47% for the city of Sedalia, 59% for the county, and 58% for the state. And then when you look at renter occupied at Sedalia at 40%, and then Pettis County at 31%. So again, knowing that the numbers of the population that's really skewed really heavily by Sedalia inside the city limits, and then the statewide average at 29. This next number I thought particularly interesting, and I'll come back to it in later slides, but the vacancy, the number of households or houses or units, housing units that are vacant is 13% of the total, 10% in Pettis, and 10% across the state. And housing affordability, they consider affordable anytime that you're spending less than 30% of your household income on your housing, then that becomes the definition of affordable. In Sedalia, 88% of our households are living in affordable housing, 86% for Pettis, and 84% for the statewide. The average mortgage, and these are numbers that I look back at the report a couple times because I'm not sure that they don't have these numbers backwards. But the average mortgage in Sedalia, they're showing at $1144, and Pettis County at $936. The numbers would make more sense if those two numbers were flip-flopped, so I'll have them check that. And then the state, $1,349. The average rent at $521 versus $519 in the county and $637 statewide. So breaking down that vacancy that I talked about earlier, there's 1,131 approximately households, or housing units that were vacant. And in Pettis County, 1821, so, 700 more essentially in the county on top of the 1131 in Sedalia. 31% of those are for rent, 19% of those are for sale. There's a few other smaller percentages in there, so many that are rented but not yet occupied, so many that are sold but not yet occupied. But this other last category that I laid out was the other vacancy. They're either not trying to be rented or not trying to be sold. They're just vacant and not on the market, so to speak. And we know, we know intrinsically that some of those is because they're uninhabitable. They're not worth living in. So they can't sell them. They can't rent them. And they need to be refurbished or rehabbed or tore down and something new built in its place. So if you do the numbers there at 41% of the 1131, then you got 464 houses or housing units inside Sedalia that for some reason is not even trying to be rented or sold. 747 in Pettis County. The housing age, we did a lot of this work in the 353 study, so we have some actually even more detailed information than what's in this, but I pulled out some summary information. Out of the total of 10,217 housing units in our houses in Sedalia, 9% of them were built are less than 20 years old. 24% are 50 years to 20 years. So if you add those two together, roughly a third of our houses are less than 50 years old. Conversely, that means 67% are more than 50 years old. And if you go all the way down there to the greater than 80, 29% of our houses are more than 80 years old. Now, some of that is good. The houses that, are old and restored and have architectural significance and historic preservation, that's really good. Unfortunately, though, I don't think 29% of our housing units fit that category. I think there's a much smaller percentage. So I think a good number of them, and again, we've got this data in the 353, a good number of those houses that are that old really aren't architecturally significant, really have no historic value. They're just old houses that are in disrepair. So again, looking at that from a standpoint of opportunity, and the numbers there above 464 houses, housing units that really need to have something done with them, kind of point you in the same direction with both of those data figures. So some conclusions that I drew out of it, this is not in the report, but just me analyzing the data and looking for opportunities or trying to define what the shortage of housing is that we know exists today. If you look at just the population growth, again, looking at Pettis County, because we know that's really the surrounding area, it's 241 houses that we'll need just to support their projected population growth. And then when you look at that other vacant of 464 inside of Sedalia or 747 inside of Pettis County for the total, that to me defines additional opportunities for either refurbishing houses or building new. So I also tried to extrapolate out of this data where in the market that housing shortage is. And so I looked at, what they were saying the median mortgage was, and then I looked at, okay, so what home value would that support? And so I just worked backwards and said, okay, if you had a 3% mortgage for a 30-year fix, you would basically be paying on $271,000 loan to amortize amortized over $11.44 a month. Or on the county side, $222,000. I also looked at the average household income at the $38,000 and the $45,000, and then using their definition of what affordability is, that would equate to $953 mortgage or rent, and $1127 in the case of the county. Do that same backwards calculation to figure out how much you would be paying on a mortgage. A 3% 30-year, you'd have $226 or $267 total value or total loan value, loan on the amount or amount of loan. The current median, again, as indicators, $95,000 for the home value and $125,000. So, to me, the data suggests that there's anywhere from 300 to 1,000 new or refurbished homes that are needed, and I believe that the majority of those values that are needed is in the $100,000 to the $275,000 range. Any questions? Comments? Council?
Good material, fellas. Thank you. You know, obviously we discussed that 353 is pretty simple.
Yeah, I think this just helps us again to get to the developers and say, if you build it, they're already here. So you can sell it. You just need to build it.
Next item, if it really works with current material prices. Okay, second item we have to deal with for finance and administration is a software package that we need. The city uses the software or a module in the software package that we need. We use a software package called Springbrook for several functions, including accounting and payroll. Relating to the payroll process, the system has a human resources module to help us manage employment information and coordinate with payroll. This module has not been used to its fullest extent in the past, in part due to a lack of understanding and training on its capabilities. Having information in one system where it can be shared seamlessly throughout the electronic means is much more efficient, reduces opportunities for errors, and provides better security over sensitive information. Currently, we're keeping the same information in multiple locations. Streamline and better manage these essential processes, we need to understand the capabilities of the software our HR people do. This will allow us to redesign our methodologies to get the most we can out of this software as a tool to help us manage human resources. One of the hindrances to understanding the capabilities of the current system is the fact that none of the current staff were here when the system was installed. Eyes are burning water. They reached out to the software vendor to obtain training on its capabilities and implementation of features not currently deployed. The vendors recommended that based on previous experience with other installations, it will take approximately 20 hours of training to accomplish this, and has quoted the cost of $3,580 for such assistance. Staff recommends a budget amendment to increase the appropriation by $3,580 for human resource management training. Some of this amount may be offset with savings from the proposed changes in drug testing methods presented at the last council meeting. Likewise, we believe we have some savings in office supplies and efficiencies going forward with the streamlining of the process. However, those precise savings haven't been determined at this point. So we will entertain an ordinance.
So we're going to, first we'll
have to have a resolution and an ordinance on this one.
Any discussion regarding that resolution? I think we can read the ordinance, excuse me, resolution.
Resolution number 1931, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Sedalia, Missouri, authorizing an increase in budgeted expenditures for the fiscal year 2021-2022 relating to training on the Human Resources module of Springbrook.
Motion to approve.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Now we have Bill number 2021-100, an ordinance amending the budget for the fiscal year 2021-2022 regarding training on the Human Resources module of Springbrook.
Second reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Bill number 2021-100, an ordinance amending the budget for the fiscal year 2021-2022 regarding training on the Human Resources module of Springbrook.
Final passage.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Oldham,
Yes.
Dawson,
Yes.
Bogus,
Yes.
Richardson,
Yes.
Cross, Foster,
Yes.
Bliss,
Yes.
and Lehman,
Yes.
all in favor.
Council and Public Works.
All right, I have two items for the Public Works tonight. The first one is a contract extension for S&A Equipment and Builders. Last year, we took an initiative to expand and accelerate our much-needed sidewalk replacement program. In previous years, the funding for sidewalk replacement has typically been around $100,000. Last year, we were able to reallocate some funding to this priority project, and in this year's budget development process, we were able to keep this increased allocation of $500,000 annually. To accomplish the accelerated sidewalk replacement, we contracted with S&A Equipment and Builders. This contract, as approved by council last year, allows for 4 one-year extensions and allowances for increase in the cost of materials. The staff recommends approval of a one-year extension of this contract with an increase of 4.64% to $7.33 per square foot. That's from $6.99 per square foot, which is within the allowable amount based on the consumer price index.
Any discussion of the ordinance?
I will say that this contract consists of 6 jobs. 2 jobs are on the north and south side of East Kent Street from South Massachusetts to South Engineer. 2 are the north and south side of East 15th from South Ingram to South Engineer. And 2 jobs are on the east and west side of South Kentucky from West 10th to West 16th Street.
Read the ordinance, please.
Bill number 2021-101, an ordinance authorizing a one-year contract extension for sidewalk demolition, disposal, repair, and replacement.
Second reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Bill number 2021-101, an ordinance authorizing a one-year contract extension for sidewalk demolition, disposal, repair, and replacement.
Final passage.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Dawson,
Yes.
Bogus,
Yes.
Richardson,
Yes.
Cross, Foster,
Yes.
Bliss,
Yes.
Lehman,
Yes.
Oldham,
Yes.
all in favor.
The second item I have is a bid and agreement for some mill and overlay. As part of the budget development process, projects were approved for repairs of Grand Street from Broadway Boulevard to Clinton Road and the parking lot at 3rd Street and Lamine. In accordance with the procurement policies, bids were solicited for these projects, and 1 bid was received. We have had a good experience with this vendor, and this is a good reputation in this region. This is with Emery Staff & Sons, and if you've traveled heading on the east side of Pettis County going into Monmouth County, 50, they've done the work on that highway there and they're heading this direction. In the bid specifications, an option was included for a material that strengthens the asphalt for heavy traffic conditions. What this is Fortify is a high tensile strength synthetic fiber blend that helps improve the asphalt pavement durability. It's this yellow fibrous material that's right here. Designed for hot mix, warm mix, and hot and cold patch asphalt, Fortify has proven successful in a variety of asphalt pavement applications, including used by MoDOT around heavily trafficked retail distribution centers and truck stops. Now, not only are we going to be able to use this for the rebasing of a lot of our streets, but the city will be able to use this Fortify in our patch operations on other roadways to assist in increased durability of patched areas, as the product easily can be mixed without changing mix design. So, the staff recommends that due to the amount of truck traffic on Grand Avenue, the extra cost to include this fortifying material is warranted, and is still within the budget amount of this project. Therefore, we recommend, the recommendation is to award a contract to Emery Sapp and Sons Incorporated to provide mill and overlay services for Grand Street and Third Street and Lamine parking lot project of $426,286.30. The mill and overlay process is a common method for repairing damaged asphalt surfaces. Grinding equipment is used to mill or grind away about 2 inches of the existing deteriorated surface and fix any base failures. Then they will overlay the back in the new surface of the asphalt.
Yeah, I thought we talked about 16th to Clinton Road. This says Broadway to Clinton Road? And it is Broadway to Clinton Road?
Yeah. On Grant.
Right on.
Yeah,
But we talked about both, right?
Well, and we talked about going all the way to 24th, but
Yeah,
then
but we've got water main issues we gotta solve first there.
Right.
So you also, you could use these for fishing baits?
I saw that, I'm gonna try flying.
And then,
When we're done with that,
Tom,
send that back and I'll make some flying.
asphalt been yellow now?
No, I don't think we'll have yellow asphalt. Any Golden Streets running through.
Yellow brick road.
Yeah, yellow brick road. Yeah.
on the end.
We better get back to work. Wonderful.
I do think it's important for the public to know an update. Emery Sapp and Sons is running behind statewide on contracts due to wet weather. They will be moving their asphalt plant to the Sedalia area around mid-August, weather dependent. So Emery Sapp and Sons will begin and complete all City of Sedalia projects without interruption.
Are they doing that Third Street project also? So that's gonna be mid-August?
And,
Mm-hmm.
and 16th, right? So 3rd,
Yeah.
16th, Grand, and the parking lot.
Right.
So we want, we talked about interference with the Surf State Fair.
Right.
They did that.
They'll be able to work nights, weekends, and holidays to avoid any traffic issues.
Great. And then, of course, we're gonna do the parking lot, and we support that for 2 years. Thank you. Any other questions? Arlene, read the ordinance, please.
Bill number 2021-102, an ordinance authorizing an agreement for the mill and overlay of various streets.
Second reading?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Bill number 2021-102, an ordinance authorizing an agreement for the mill and overlay of various streets.
Final passage.
Second.
Roll call, please.
August?
Yes.
Richardson?
Yes.
Cross? Foster?
Yes.
Bliss?
Yes.
Lehman?
Yes.
Oldham?
Yes.
Dawson?
Yes.
All in favor.
Appointments, Arlene, please.
To members of the City Council from Mayor John Cady. 1, new appointment for Central Business and Cultural District, Darian Weeks, 108 East Fifth Street, 3-year term ending 7/24, and the position was formerly held by Michelle Sword.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Liquor license.
We have 1 new license and 4 renewals this evening. The new license is for Yodaben J. Modi, doing business as Liquor Locker at 513 West Main Street, packaged liquor and Sunday sales license. The renewals are for Crystal Sims, doing business as Woods Supermarket, 701 East Broadway, for packaged liquor and Sunday sales. Diana Green, doing business as Little Bighorn, 150 South Limit, for beer and wine license. Brad Wickstrom, doing business as Craft Beer Cellar at 700 South Ohio, liquor by the drink and Sunday sales and sidewalk consumption licenses. Erica Eisenmenger, doing business as Ivory Grill, 317 South Ohio, for sidewalk consumption.
Motion to approve in block?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I just want to say that I think we had I know we did, we had a great event, 4th of July. Thank everybody for attending, and these guys with their clean hands prepared those hot dogs. So how many was the hot dog, Nathan hot dog eating?
We need to
I
fill
thought
in
you
500 hot dogs.
How many do you need? We really didn't have a contest. We could have we could have a hot dog eating
So
contest.
we're gonna have Mr. Test out here next year.
Are you buying all those hot dogs?
Absolutely. So, and, you know, it was unfortunate, how often we have a Sunday and Fourth of July correspondence. But, you know, we didn't have a lot of participants, but we had a good crowd. And we had a great crowd. The park was great. We had 400 or 500 hot dogs prepared. Bob Cross, I know, he had a handful.
He did great. And he was out there in the sun for 2 hours, Paul? Yeah, before Tom. Well,
Don't feel sorry for Tom.
No.
He gets all the glory.
I didn't get my face in the front page yet.
We don't have any,
Chris.
we don't have any hair left on our.
I was
It was all
done,
shaved
yeah.
off. That was a hot spot.
It was hot.
And John Simmons, I think we had the best tattoos.
Yeah.
I don't know, y'all put something in them, because as much as I've scrubbed it, still won't come off.
Let's make sure that the police department, fire department gets tattoos.
Right on the
Have we
forehead.
got some left over?
Right below their eyes here.
I know the police have a tattoo, kind of guideline of these.
I don't want to see your tattoos. Cool. And I heard rumors today that at Hubbard Park, they poured the concrete pad for the
Splash pad. Oh, that's cool. I think that. They poured floors today in the pool, some of the floors to the pool today at the community center too. Oh, really?
So thanks for pouring.
It's good place to have a concrete thing. Anyway.
Any city council members want to make any comments tonight?
Working with, the park department, we're coming right along with that 100th birthday celebration. We have an individual that's coming and will be doing caricatures. That's kind of fun. Face painting, quite a little bit of stuff happening. If there's anybody that wants to be a vendor during that celebration on the 7th of August, please let us know. We'll go from there.
Who we got?
Me or Amy. You won't catch up with Amy, so me.
Just look up your house.
Oh, my God. There's a lot of people that know where I live, obviously.
The train car at Liberty Park, the train, there's a ribbon cutting, Thursday at 6:30. I believe that's
That's the dedication for
the train dedication there at Liberty, yeah.
really neat, so. Anybody else?
Wait a minute, Tom, the train car at Liberty Park or the shelter?
Yeah,
The little,
shelter.
the new,
Sorry, yeah.
We also have the fair coming up, and we will continue our branding efforts of getting that story out and getting those kinds of things out at the state fair as well.
How much we charge for the tattoos at the fair? We got a fair price.
Is council in the parade at the fair this year?
Absolutely. Okay. We've modified it a little bit. John, what are we going to do for the booth at the fair?
There will be 2 booths at the fair this year. One will be the Madison Center, it won't be a man booth, but we're trying to get a booth also outside by the administration building, by the grandstand. So we'll be outside this year, managing the booth, talking about Sedalia, really highlight our job opportunities, the Hacker Community Center, those fun things coming up to the city. So we'll have 2 booths this year. One will focus on branding and talking about the Sedalia story, and then the other one will just be kind of a billboard advertisement inside of the Madison Center. Similar to the ones that used to hang in here, we've done each year.
So you're looking for council members to volunteer?
Yes, so we haven't done the schedule yet for manning the booth, but typically it's a 4-hour stint from 9 to noon to 4 to 8. So we'll probably adjust that a little bit. 4 hours is kind of a long time sometimes, but we'll work on the schedule next. I'll have a sign up between now and the next council meeting. So pass that around to council people first, and then we'll have city staff and see I was remiss earlier this evening. I wanted to also point out that since Joe Lee has joined the department, she's been part of that development opportunity package that we've been creating. And I'm sure to give credit where credit's due. Joe Lee's been a good part of that. Way to go, Joe Lee. Thanks, John. Joe Lee gets really good. Anybody else? Anybody from the audience like to say a few words? Let's say it's maybe one. Definitely having fun. I can tell. And we need to have a motion to close door for emergency session.
Your Honor, I give you a motion to go into emergency closed door session in regards under the Missouri revised statute 610-21, section 1.
Roll call, please.
We're going into emergency closed door?
Yeah, it wasn't posted. Something came up over the weekend, so we need to
Okay.
go in for legal advice.
Okay, sorry. Lehman,
Here.
Oldham.
Yes.
Dawson,
Yes.
August. Yes. Richardson.
Yes.
Cross.
Stepped out.
Foster.
Yes.
And Bliss.
Here. Football game? No, his phone, something came up with his phone.
This conference will now be recorded.